What are we doing today? Well, we're gonna be making the poor man's beadlock. What does that mean exactly? This is inspired by ICON's Rebound Pros, where instead of using actual engineered hardware to hold the bead from slipping off the bead seat of the rim, we're actually gonna be taking these 1-inch sheet metal screws and screwing them into the steel wheel, which will go into the tire bead, holding them on the steel wheel. I think it's gonna be awesome. This was inspired not only by ICON Rebound Pros, but this was used, and I don't know if it still is, but is used in the drag racing world and has been since like the 60s or 70s, where the tire kept slipping around the wheel because they were getting so much horsepower that the wheel would just spin inside of the tire. So they would use these little screws to screw into the bead of the tire, holding the tire to the wheel. So that's exactly what we're gonna do with you guys today. Definitely not the same one we had yesterday. I think what we're going to do is actually open up these holes just a little bit more. What we're having is the first 3 went fine, and then now, whether I press too hard or not hard enough, either way the screw heads are just breaking right off. So I think our holes are just a little bit too small, and maybe we just got lucky on the first 3. I'm not sure, but we're going to go ahead and grab a different drill bit and open these holes up just a little bit more, just so that our screws go in there a little bit easier. Well, half is better than none. Now that we got it figured out, took a little bit, but that's trial and error. 15 out of 16 ain't bad on this one. Wow, these look absolutely hideous on here. So they do fit. We were a little worried about that because the positive offset of the wheels makes the tire sit back, tucked in a lot further. So we weren't sure if there was going to be some clearance issues behind the tire. Now we are going to have to be careful that we don't accidentally maybe blow out a sidewall and tear out one of the Falcon shocks on here. So we're gonna keep an eye on things, make sure we take it slow and easy, and plus we don't know, with these roofing screws being as weak as they are, if they're even gonna hold up. I mean, the screws might break off before anything even happens to the tire. These Canadis, I think I mentioned it earlier, these Armor Hogs, they have a full steel construction. So they're pretty tough tires, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to use them, see if we can actually tear them up or not with our less than $10 beadlock wheel system here. So we're gonna check the tire pressure, just make sure we're at about 10 PSI or so. Which we are. Right exactly at 10 PSI on this one. Yep, and this one is already at 10 PSI, so that is gonna be our base point for pressure. And we're gonna just, I don't know, we're gonna try to find some things to maybe drive over, maybe a curb or something like that, do some mall crawling, I guess, I don't know. But what we wanna do is we wanna really flex this tire, let it fold, see if we can maybe burp some air out of these homemade beadlocks to start with. And then eventually what I wanna do is I wanna get down to almost no air inside the tire at all, like run down to maybe a couple pounds, maybe 0 PSI in these tires, and just see how much damage we can do, if any at all. Maybe the tire will stay on the bead, I don't know, but it's gonna be interesting. And then when we mess around with these a little bit more, we're gonna take the 4Runner with the ICON Rebound Pros, we're gonna air those down, and then we're also gonna do some of the same tests just to see the comparison, which I don't think there's even gonna be one. So let's jump in here, let's take it for a ride. All right guys, first test, 10 PSI. I'm gonna back up to the curb just a little bit at an angle. Now, let me say this. I wish we had a decent rock garden around here, a decent off-road place to go that we could really test these out. I know you guys give us a bunch of shit because we don't have anywhere to go true off-roading around here. The curb is really all we have for now, unless we take a trip somewhere up north in Wisconsin. So this is gonna have to do for now. This is some preliminary testing, but we will have these wheels long term, so who knows what the future is gonna bring. For now, we're just gonna use this curb as sort of an example just to see how well they work. So we'll back up at an angle here. Just remember that's 10 PSI. So a little bit of squish, a little bit of sidewall squish, but being that these are a full steel construction tire and it's a Jeep, there's not a lot of weight hanging over the top of these rear tires on here. So that's why we started at 10 PSI. Any more than that, and I don't even think they'd squish very much at all. So we're definitely gonna have to drop them down a lot further. Next test is gonna be 5 PSI, and then the next test, we're just gonna let all the air out, see what happens. Getting her to squat a little bit more, going up at it at an angle like that, and that's still at 10 PSI. So we got a little bit more flex out of it. Looks like our homemade $10 beadlocks are working pretty good. All right, well, next, let's bump her down to 5 PSI because, and I don't even think 5 PSI is gonna flex them that much. I really wanna get these sidewalls folding over because I wanna see if these cheap ass roofing screws actually hold that tire seat or that tire bead to the tire seat. So we'll drop it down to 5 PSI, but I'm guessing that even after the test, after that 10 PSI, that even 5 is still gonna be too much. I had to go run and get my fast deflator out of the 4Runner. That slime air pressure gauge, you could barely see the little lines going down into the single digit PSIs. So we're gonna go ahead and use this because this is a lot more easier to see. As you can tell, it has the single digit marks on here. So just wanna make sure we're about at the tire pressure that we need to be at. That's pretty close, about halfway between the 10 and 0 mark. All right, well, sitting at 5 PSI, we're just gonna do the same test over again. We're gonna back up at 5 PSI now. We'll basically do a straight back up over the curb. I feel dumb just driving over a curb with low PSI because it's not like we're actually off-roading, but you know what? It at least gives us a representation of if our $10 beadlocks work or not. See once, see how it looks. God, that's barely even like, bet you we can run these things all the way down to 0 PSI. We need some bigger rocks. A little more airflow out here. Now I just let all the air out of the tires here, pulled the valve stem cores, let all the air out. And one thing I wanted to point out real quick is this passenger side tire here. Now, do you guys see how on the back side of the tire, do you see how it's more folding out this way? Like all of the pressure is kind of going outwards this way, like towards the passenger side. And that's why a lot of companies will only put the beadlock ring on the outer part of the wheel, or like ICON Rebound Pros, they put the pins on the outer edge of the rim of the wheel. And that's because when you're off-roading, in most circumstances, unless you're doing some hardcore off-road racing or some really competitive style type of rock crawling, most times you're going to have that tire want to fold away from the outer part of the wheel and inwards. And that's why the beadlocks are on the outside of the wheel. Not very many circumstances, unless you're really jammed up in a precarious situation in the rocks, where the tire is going to want to fold outwards. Most time it wants to fold inwards. So just like this one's doing right here. So now that we have all the air out of the tires, let's go drive this thing around. Feels like I'm driving with the park brake on. I think it's just folding over. It almost looks like the tire's starting to crack, but it's not. And the tire bead is definitely staying on. In fact, there's no, well, I guess there's a little bit here. There's a little bit of separation from the rim to the tire, but it's not bad at all. Now, I'm a little excited because this is a lot of fun, but just don't try this at home, and don't do this on the street either. If you're gonna do this, make sure it's an off-road only vehicle, and we don't approve or condone this message. So but this is pretty cool. This is awesome. These cheap ass screws in the steel wheels are actually holding on that tire bead. It does help that the tire is all steel construction, makes it a lot stiffer in the sidewall, so it's not going to be as likely to fold as like a conventional even 3-ply wheel that has the nylon cords in it. But this is working. I think with this preliminary test that we're doing today, I think this passes enough that we're going to take it to an off-road park just about an hour north of us, Tigerton, and continue our testing. Now, one thing I do want to do now, I know I did say earlier trying out the ICON Rebound Pros, but I don't know if this justifies enough of a test to even put those to the challenge at all, right? Because what are we doing? We got a 6-inch curb here, maybe a 7-inch curb that we're crawling over with a homemade beadlock wheel with roofing screws. Now, that might be good enough for this test as a preliminary test, just to try it out, but I don't think it's gonna do justice for the ICON Rebound Pros. I think those are gonna require some extreme challenges off-road. So I think what we're gonna do is I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this video up for now, as a point that this does work, it can work, and it's a super inexpensive way to make a beadlock wheel for an off-road only vehicle. Albeit, I don't know if this was gonna be my weekend warrior, where if I was gonna be taking this vehicle out every weekend or every other weekend or once a month or whatever the case may be, I don't think I would use the roofing screws again, because they are so soft and they were breaking off as we were screwing them into the wheel. Even though we drilled pilot holes, the pilot holes went all the way through the steel into the tire bead itself. Even though we did that, we were still breaking off these soft roofing screws. So I think if I were to do this again, I would use some like grade 8 or better hardware to mount the tire beads to the wheel with. So, you know, maybe jumping on like jegs or something like that. I don't know where you can find them, but it's like tire wheel mounting hardware or wheel mounting hardware or something like that, I think it's called, where they have actual engineered hardware to screw into the wheel to hold the tire on. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna wrap this video up for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it, maybe gained a little bit of information from it. It was definitely a lot of fun shooting this video. We're gonna have a lot more fun once we get up to Tigerton and start hitting those off-road obstacles and really putting these things to the test just to see if they're gonna hold up or not. And we might even look at getting those broken bolts out of there and replacing them with some stronger hardware. And that's maybe what we could do too. Like, obviously we got these wheels and tires right off of our website on TrailBuilt. Even like these steel wheels. Now these are 18 by 9s. These were right around 350 bucks, something like that. Obviously, if you go with a smaller diameter, you can get them even cheaper. But steel wheels, Canadi Armor Hogs. I mean, obviously we got these right off of our website, but the point is you can make cheap wheels, cheap tires work on your off-road vehicle to go wheeling with. You don't always have to go expensive. And if you guys are looking for a lot of good deals, you can find them on our website at TrailBuilt, and we'll have a link posted in the description below. But guys, what I really want to know is, what do you guys think about this? Like, have you ever made your own homemade beadlocks that are similar to this? I'd be curious to hear back from you guys what you think, if you've done it before, if you think this test, or if you think these tires are going to hold up to more extreme off-roading. Definitely make sure and let us know in the comments below. And guys, as always, we appreciate all of you for watching and all of your support. I'm Josh from TrailBuilt, and we'll see you guys out on the trails.